Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Building a Holistic Life, Chapter 1, where we talk about what actually makes a happy life, we define what is a holistic life specifically, and we dive into the 3 levels of the structure that allows you to focus on building a life that you want and making sure that you're always progressing towards your goals. So let's jump right into it. So the first thing is happiness and or purpose, I think, are the number one thing that most people want when they're talking about what they want from their lives. So most of the time when you ask someone that question of what do you want your life to be about or what do you want from your life, and their answer will be one of 2 things. First, either happiness, they want to be happy, or second, they want their life to mean something. They want to feel like they're doing something purposeful with their life. Now, unsurprisingly probably, is that a few years ago, some scientists did a study looking at whether or not people associated with the saying or the sentence of "I walk aimlessly through life." And they determined that the people who did not associate with that saying, i.e. the people who actually found there was a goal or they were driven towards doing something specifically, actually lived longer lives. Now, I believe that a lot of people, specifically the young people, early, mid, late 20s, are actually doing kind of the complete opposite. Most of the time, when you ask them simple things like, what do you want to do, or where do you want to go for dinner, or what do you want to wear, and they'll end up answering with, I don't know. Now, you may be telling yourself that, who cares? That's such a small, meaningless thing. Why do we put so much stock into it? And while that is true to a certain extent, it's kind of exposing some of the underlying issues that a lot of people are dealing with and why there's so much unhappiness among people nowadays. When was the last time you guys heard someone say, I have no idea what I want to do with my life, or I don't know what's next? Or you've asked them that question and you've gotten the I don't know answer, or probably even worse, let's not go there. That second response is so dangerous because there is an active disregard for not being able to answer that question. When people say, let's not go there, it's most likely because they're afraid of actually exploring what that means to decide what to do next. Until we are able to grasp that question and deal with it, there's going to be a fear around not knowing where you're going or what you're doing. So everyone realistically in life, in order to be happy, needs to decide what it is that they want to do and where is it that they want to go. So with that being said, if unhappiness comes from a lack of purpose or a lack of direction, then it seems easy enough to just find a purpose, find a direction. Well, obviously it's not as easy as saying it. And the reason it's not quite as easy to actually do that is because in order to find your purpose, you actually need to go out and experiment and experience and live through a bunch of different things to actually find what is it that makes you happy, that makes you motivated to keep going and pursuing even when times get difficult. Now, I think therein lies the secret. This idea of following a direction, pursuing a goal with the ultimate purpose of actually figuring out what is it that will make you happy. In kind of a weird twist, if you asked a young kid, what do they want to do when they grow up? What do you want to do when you're an adult? And most kids will be able to answer that question fairly quickly. However, you ask someone in their teens about to finish high school, what is it they want to do with the rest of their life? And that answer takes a little bit longer to get. And then once you start talking about, people my age in their mid-20s, they almost can't answer that question. And I think the primary reason for that is we now live in a world with so many options, and the fear of missing out, that fantastic FOMO, is very true and is very real in today's life. We're bombarded with so many opportunities, whether that's online, you see people do things, or this idea that you have to go to university and our parents are influencing us and whatnot, that it becomes almost impossible to make that decision because you're always worried about, well, what happens if I did something else instead? Understanding that then allows you to realize that there is not any one decision that you're going to make that is locked in stone. If you can pick one and work on it until there is a point where you realize, maybe this is not for me, and then pivot and switch to something else, ultimately you will eventually get to that point where you find your purpose and you find what actually makes you happy. Now, in that statement, there is another problem, and that's this sunken cost problem. Once we have invested time and money into something, it's very hard for us to actually put that to the side and move on to something else. There is an innate feeling in wanting to continue in something that we have spent so much of our effort pursuing. So how do we actually beat this really strong combination of FOMO and the sunken cost effect? And I think it comes down to the mindset shift that is realizing that nothing you do is set in stone. As I mentioned before, if you develop the ability to actually pivot away from something when you realize that it is no longer working for you, you will avoid getting stuck in a rut that we hate, because we understand that, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to decide that you don't want to do this thing that maybe you spent 3 years studying for, or maybe you have spent a few years working at. Understand that, okay, it's fine to move to something else, right? So as long as we keep in mind that there is no decision that is set in stone, that all of those opportunities that were available to us when we were younger are still available to us. They may be slightly more difficult to achieve, but they're still there now. Then it prevents us from being kind of consumed by the analysis paralysis of where do I want to go with my life and deciding what it is that I actually want to do. All right, so if we know that achieving happiness comes from actually having a purpose and being able to follow that purpose and follow that direction, completing goals, up until the point where you realize maybe it's not for me, and then pivoting away from it, then the question becomes, how do we continue that direction? How do we stay on the path even though things may not be quite exactly what we expected, or we haven't been able to actually see the results that we wanted? And I think the answer to that question is structure. When we live within a structure, it actually allows us to continue to progress and focus on the things that we care about, and allows us the time to actually make a informed decision about whether or not we want to continue, or whether or not we were just having a bad day. So this holistic life design actually gives you the structure around which you can build your life with some key factors that you really want to focus on, as well as a whole bunch of daily, day-to-day activities that allow you to build up to the point where you're achieving your ultimate goals. So to me, a holistic life is a life that centers around your greatest desire, the one thing you want the most from your life, while also actually giving you the ability to pursue your passions and go out and do the things that you love and that make you happy. But at the same time, it actually also gives you the foundation centered around a few key pillars that you can act on day to day to allow you to continually progress to ultimately achieving the life that you absolutely want. This is a structure that is completely modular, that allows it to be personalized to each individual. And so there are some kind of guidelines, if you will, but there are a whole bunch of different moving pieces that can be popped in and out and replaced with anything that you specifically want to focus on. So let's jump into the actual 3 different levels of a holistic life to give you guys a little bit of a better idea. So this is actually structured as a pyramid, and at the top of it, you have your ultimate desire. And it's the one thing that you absolutely can't live without. It's the first thing you think about when you wake up, and the last thing you think about before you go to bed. It's the thing that without it consumes all of your time and would just make you miserable, right? You can't really focus on anything else because you're worried about that one thing. Now, for me, that is companionship, love, and family. I know that without a partner, that is the only thing that I can actually think about. So I know that when I'm alone, I'm absolutely miserable. It's the one thing that I worry about all the time. Now, some people actually need their space on their own to be happy. I'm very much the opposite. I need to have that person there that I can rely on and that I can trust. Now, I know that life is never going to be perfect. It's going to have its ups and downs, and there are going to be some days that are awesome and some days that clearly suck. But I know that at the end of the day, when I'm with my partner, that we'll be able to weather the storm regardless of what happens. And I think that this is actually taken one step further when I think about what is my absolute ultimate goal of my life, and that's being a dad. Having a partner allows me to fulfill that want of being a dad. I grew up with my dad and we had a really good relationship, and he taught me a lot and really molded me into the person that I am today. And so I'm really looking forward to actually being able to do that with my kids, to show them the ropes, so to speak, and teach them how to be a good, productive human being in this world. It's really intense, but when I actually make every single decision, I make it with those two things in mind: my partner and my eventual child. I try and make decisions in order to maximize my ability to achieve those and really minimize things that may hinder that objective. And so I built the rest of my holistic system with that in mind. My passions and my day-to-day targets are all there to really support that ultimate goal of having a family. So with that being said, let's jump into the second level, which is the level that focuses on your passions. I'm a big believer in actually having multiple passions. Having only one really kind of boxes you into being that person that loves that one thing. And I think a lot of times we spend way too much time then invested in one area to the point where it gets lame or stale, or it doesn't really inspire us anymore. And so having two different passions actually allows you to break up your time into each one of those groups, and allows you to make more of your time productive rather than spending it doing things that actually don't help you. So what I mean by that is, for me, my two passions would be exploration, whether that's through backpacking or scuba diving or mountain biking, and then my second one is the creativity aspect. Now those two things are very broad, I should say, and the reason for that is because I don't ever want to feel like I have to do one thing. The things that I am passionate about are the things that I want to spend my time doing, and so by making them broad, I can actually feel greater achievement and greater productivity by being able to diversify, so to speak, in my life. I can spend the morning hiking or exploring or diving, and then spend the afternoons being more creative, making videos, doing some graphic design, whatever. And so in this way, I can actually maximize the hours in my day to achieve more of the things that I actually want to do. All in all, I think these passions are really what should be fueling you, driving you forward in order to uplift you, keep your spirits high, make you happy. Those are the things that you want to continue to do and expand and learn and progress through. They're the things that make the next level kind of easier to deal with, in the sense that it gives you time to focus purely on the things that bring you joy and less on the things that you feel like you have to do. Let's jump into this third level, or the bottom of the pyramid, the foundation for the rest of your life, and I like to call that intentional work. And what it is it's 4 different tasks that you can target and work on every single day to feel like you're progressing. Now, the reason we have 4 is because, again, we can spend more of our time working on each individual one rather than lumping all of our time into one and then burning ourselves out. So for me, there's the financial independence that is meant to provide stability in the long run, as I mentioned before, with the ultimate goal of having a family and being in a partnership that is maybe not full of stress and negativity. One of the things that's very important for that is financial stability. One of my day-to-day targeted goals is financial independence. Now, in this channel, we're going to talk a lot about that, about how to build finances into your life so that it becomes a solid foundation rather than a hindrance or a stress. And I think that's super important. I'm really into learning. I love to build my knowledge over time, because I think that's the one place where you can never spend too much time. The more you learn, the less you need. To me, that's very, very powerful. Minimalism is very important for me. Again, it's about simplifying your life to actually allow for more time spent with the people you love, because it's not, your life isn't being bogged down by stuff or commitments or time wasting activities. And then lastly is my health. Obviously, with wanting to live a long, happy life with my family, I can only do that if I'm still breathing. And so focusing on continuing to live a healthy lifestyle, eating well, being active will actually help prolong that life that I'm hoping to build. And so this intentional work that we've broken into 4 kind of specific categories are really there to, again, allow that foundation where once those things are taken care of, you can freely engage in your passions in order to be happy, while then also supporting that ultimate desire that you want to achieve. I think it's very important to finish this video by saying that none of the decisions that you make, none of the pieces that you put into this pyramid are necessarily there forever. Now, as we talked about with purpose and finding direction, I think it's very important to actually give yourself the time to invest in those things and see if they work for you. But then after a while, if they don't, you can definitely take them out and switch them. But you need to be careful not to spend too much time switching out these different things and moving around pieces, because you'll never actually be able to make a noticeable progression towards your ultimate goal. It's kind of that 2 steps forwards, 1 step back type thing, but if you do it too much, it ends up being 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And so you really want to take the time to think about what it is you want from your life and take some time alone with no distractions to actually sit down with yourself and decide, where is it that I want to go? What is it that I want to do? Take some opportunities, say yes to things, go out, try new stuff, and then build yourself a system and a structure, potentially using this structure, into which you can apply and progress and hopefully ultimately achieve that life that makes you happy, that makes you feel fulfilled. Now, obviously, this love-focused ultimate desire is only one. I think that there are actually several different large categories that the majority of us would actually associate with. And next week, what we're going to do is we're going to dive a little bit more into detail into each one of those kind of bigger categories. And if anyone has ideas or would like to give input, then absolutely do so in the comments down below, and we'll see if we can build that into the system. As I mentioned last week, this is a growing system. It is not anything that is concrete or definitive. And so next week, I think it's going to be really good to take some time to explore all those different ultimate desires and give everyone a good foundation onto which they can build the rest of their holistic life. So with that, I'm going to say thanks very much for watching this. You can subscribe if you're someone who wants to build more, who wants to do more with their lives. If you're potentially early on in your life and you're trying to figure stuff out, definitely hit the subscribe button and stay in contact. You can reach out to me always, either through the comments or directly on Instagram. So thanks a lot. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week.